I don't like the look of this. Not one bit. I want you to hang back. But keep that bow ready in case I get in trouble. So you're good running all over Tamriel with me? You don't have any family business you gotta take care of?
Not so much. Our family is of little consequence, so we're free to be a bunch of impetuous miscreants chasing our own whims. If I'd been born to one of the great houses, I'd either be a pawn in their schemes or a disappointment, like father.
Oh, hey guys. I didn't realize anybody even knew we were here in the West Weald. This is a new zone from the Gold Road chapter. Well, I'm glad you're here because I've been working on a One Bar Arcanist. I really like this setup because it has a lot of flexibility. Because the Arcanist is so strong, you can run this a few different ways and get good results with all of them. The build is set up to use the Oakensoul ring like most One Bar builds, but you can omit that if you want. In the fight you just saw a small piece of, I actually substituted the Ring of the Pale Order for Oakensoul. You can drop the Mythics altogether and just run a Monster Helm set. The highest damage option was with the Oakensoul ring though, but I'll go through with what the options are shortly. The build also uses one of the new scribe skills to get more power in solo situations, but like the Oakensoul ring, this new skill is optional. Okay, let's go ahead and get into the build. For a change I went with the strongest DPS race, and that's Dark Elf. I'll put the stamina DPS tier list up for you guys that want to know that. And this is the Stamina Arcanist. You can run a Magic Arcanist if you want, but it seems to me that they're slightly weaker. Dark Elf has bonuses to weapon and spell damage and max magicka and stamina, making it a great damage dealer race. I tend to run a lot of Dark Elves, not because they're the strongest, but because I enjoy the Dark Elf lore and stories in the various zones. Down at the bottom of the sheet you can see that I'm using the Thief Mundus stone for extra critical chance, and I haven't used anything else in years for a PvE damage dealer. My buff food is lava foot soup and salt rice, and that's almost always what I use on a stamina character. That gives me the most stamina and most sustain, with the high sustain bonus being mandatory in some builds. It's always possible to add health with glyphs on my armor to get it above the Mendoza line. Speaking of health, at the top of the sheet you can see that's only 18,000, which is too low. I like that to be at least 20,000, but on the PTS I don't usually make the adjustment that I would make on my live account. Max stamina is at 30,000, and that's plenty, so I can spare a little of that for more health. Stamina recovery is strong at 1800, and this build doesn't really need all that, but it's nice to have. Weapon damage is at 5600 and critical chance is at 55%, and those are buffed values. Because this is an Oakensoul build, Major Brutality and Major Savagery are baked in already. Now typically builds require potions of weapon power, but not this one, since this is an Oakensoul build. Instead I'll slot Tri-Stat Restoration potions and have those on tap in case I need them. Penetration is at 4600, which is all you need. I guess it's been a while since I went on one of my tirades about penetration being an overrated stat in PvE. Don't invest in penetration in your PvE damage dealer builds, invest in critical chance. That's where it's at. Alright, let's move on to the crux of the matter, and that's the skills. Get it? Crux? This is an Arcanist? No good? Sorry. Why did you say your dad's a disappointment? I know that's not how you feel about him.
He's a seventh son of a seventh son in House Halalu, so he wasn't going to amount to anything without climbing over his siblings. Dad's too sweet for that, so we wound up marrying into our little house for something as unprofitable as love.
The first skill on this One Bar build is Inspired Scholarship. This causes my class skills to do additional damage and generates a crux if I don't have one already. This is important because my most powerful skill consumes crux. Now I use my new scribe skill, Shocking Soul. My custom version of this skill is set up to do instant shock damage and inflict the enemy with Major Breach, reducing its armor by 5,000 points. This skill also generates a crux. Now if you don't want to get involved in scribing, just leave the skill out and slot a burst heal here. You may want to do that anyway if you're not comfortable running without one. Most of the time I rely on my Tri-Stat potions and another one of my skills for healing. Before I get to that skill though, I use Deadly Cloak from the dual wield skill line. Deadly Cloak causes enemies around me to take damage over time, and it protects me by reducing the damage I take from area effects. Now I'm going to use Cephaliarch's Flail, which causes tentacles to lash out at enemies in front of me and generates a crux. Enemies struck by the tentacles are covered in abyssal ink, causing them to take 5% more damage. So now I should have 3 green crux circling my character, and I'll consume them by using my main damage skill, which is Exhausting Fate Carver. The 3 consumed crux cause the 4-second channel of Fate Carver to do its maximum damage. While this beam is channeling, I'll queue up Shocking Soul by pressing that button during the channel. When the Fate Carver is finished, Shocking Soul will fire off automatically. Now I use Cephaliarch's Flail again and the Fate Carver again. After this, I just repeat the rotation. It's important to note that this isn't a heavy attack build, so I'm weaving in light attacks except while Fate Carver is channeling. In that case, I skip it and queue up the next skill like I described. Also, if you're running with a tank that's applying Major Breach to a boss, leave out Shocking Soul. In that case, just use Cephaliarch's Flail twice and you'll be better off. But I wouldn't underestimate the ability to use Shocking Soul to apply that debuff and generate a crux at the same time. The tank can only be in one place at a time, and sometimes you'll have to break off and deal with adds on your own. The only thing I haven't talked about is my ultimate, and that's the Tide King's Gaze. This summons a likeness of Hermaeus Mora to blast the enemy with a destructive beam. This beam will follow the enemy wherever it goes, and in practice I find this morph works really well. Alright, that's it for skills since this is a 1-bar build. Let's round up one of the usual knuckleheads and see how it does. You seem like you've got something on your mind.
I got a letter from my father about my mother, Irene. She's gone missing. She has a habit of running off on an adventure at the drop of a hat and being gone for weeks at a time, but Dad says she's been out of touch for a while now. He's worried.
Hold that thought. I've got to get this done. So the build hit 47,000 points of damage per second, and that's going to be plenty unless you want to venture into the competitive scene. Now that's with the Oaken Soul Ring. I want to say that I hit 42 or 44,000 without it, but my memory is failing me here because I did most of the work on this a couple of weeks ago. I've been playing Gold Road a lot since it hit the live server, so hopefully I can have some insights for you guys. Speaking of which, if you're grinding for Luminous Ink, I'd stick to resource nodes on that. Whatever the drop rate is on bosses, it's low, so don't even think about them. I'm getting between 5 and 10 inks per hour of farming nodes, and I'm sure that they increase that drop rate, so that's the way to go for now. Okay, back to the matter at hand. You can see that Fate Carver did 60% of the damage. Using that as much as possible and only using it when I have 3 crux is the key to success here. Alright, let's move along to the gear. So let me get this straight. Your mom's an adventurer too?
It runs in the family. Well, Mom's side. Dad's a halalu trader she partnered with for years before settling down. Mostly settling down. She'd acquire all sorts of rare items for their clients, but my father said they haven't had any commissions.
So where'd she run off to?
Mom neglected to mention it, I'm sure, but my father mentioned getting an angry letter from one of their old clients at the Stormhold Mages Guild, claiming she reneged on their arrangement after taking payment. Would you mind if we pay them a visit?
Not at all. As a matter of fact, I think we should leave right away. Let's wrap this up. I'm afraid I don't have anything exotic in the gear section for you. My focus is always going to be on the skills and getting the most out of basic gear. Some of you guys remember I used to talk about the 3 R's, and that's readily available gear, reproducible rotations, and reachable DPS. That's still my mantra, I didn't forget. But even so, I think I'm going to introduce some different gear over the next few videos. I'll start with my main character from my live account and take a look at him and what he's running. I don't want you guys to get completely bored with the gear section, but there aren't any surprises with the character I'm talking about now. I have a pair of Order's Wrath daggers which I crafted in the High Isle. This is the strongest crafted set you can make. My main hand is Nirnhoned with a poison enchant, and my offhand is charged with a flame enchant. You heard that right. That's poison on the main hand and fire on the offhand. I know you guys were ready for me to say it's the charged trait on both hands. Nope, not this time. It's still going to be Nirnhoned unless you have a ton of status effect damage going on and just a lot of damage in general. But because the poison status effect now has ramping execute damage, it's actually better to run that on the main hand. I know, go ahead and sit down if you need a minute. It came as a shock to me too. Well, I guess I was wrong. There was a surprise in the gear section after all. It's no surprise that I'm running a Slime Craw helm for extra crit though. That comes out of Wayrest Sewer, so it should be pretty easy for you guys to get. The other 5-piece set I'm wearing is Deadly Strike, and that's a Cyrodiil set. Deadly Strike is a great set for builds with a lot of damage over time and or a channeled spammable attack, and it just so happens to describe this build. Go to Cyrodiil and get it or buy it from Guild Traders because it's one of the best sets in the game. Finally, we come to the Oaken Soul Ring, which isn't just for heavy attack builds. This is a great item for when you want to simplify things down to 1 bar regardless of the type of build. Oaken Soul gives you more buffs than you can shake the proverbial stick at and really simplifies the whole build process. The downside, of course, is that you're limited to 1 bar. Now you can run without the Oaken Soul Ring if you want, and that gives you the option of having some utility skills on your back bar. That allows you to use a full 2-piece monster helm setup if you want, and honestly this will do almost as well as an Oaken Soul setup. That's a testament to the strength of the Arcanist class. All my body gear is medium with the Divine's trait, but you can get higher stats if you make 1 piece light. Make sure that's one of the small pieces. The jewelry is bloodthirsty with weapon damage glyphs. Okay, that's a wrap on the gear. Let's look at the champion points. In the blue tree I have Fighting Finesse, Biting Aura, Thaumaturge, and Wrathful Strikes, and that's typical in that it's a little counterintuitive. In the red tree I have Celerity, Bloody Renewal, Rejuvenation, and Boundless Vitality. Don't take Fortified for extra armor. That uses a valuable slot for what amounts to very little damage mitigation. Take Celerity for the extra movement speed. That will save your life a lot more than Fortified. So who are we looking for in Stormhold anyway?
Dad's letter said that the one raising a stink was an old client of theirs named Myrtolivian, a member of the Stormhold Mages Guild. Let's get to Shadowfen and see just what sort of trouble Mom got herself into this time.
Alright guys, I'm going to take my leave and head down to Stormhold. I hope you liked the video. If you did, don't forget to hit the like button, and if you want to see more content like this, please subscribe to the channel. There's a fashion show and a fight from the new West Wield zone at the end. That's going to show the boss battle from the beginning in its entirety. The mechanic of the fight will be readily apparent, and if you don't want that spoiled, turn off the video during the fashion show. Thanks for watching, have a great day, and enjoy your adventures in Tamriel.